Flosstube. My name is Becca, and I am SamBrie Stitches here on Flosstube and Instagram. And this is another special edition of Interview with a Flosstuber. I am so excited to get to spend some time with Chris today. He is Chris Cross Stitches on Flosstube. His channel is fairly new, but has grown in popularity, which is amazing. He brings so much positivity and nostalgia. The stories he tells, the toys he shows, it's just an amazing, it's not all just about stitching, which is great because it just brings so much love and positivity to our community. And I'm so glad that his channel has grown so much. If you've not checked out his channel, I'll link everything down below, but it's definitely one that you need to go check out. So how are you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for asking me to do this. I'm really flattered and honored. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to be here. So
I'm so excited that you said yes, because I'm obsessed with your channel along with many others, but yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
So we will jump into questions. The first one is, why did you start a Flosstube, and were there any particular motivations?
You know, I honestly didn't know it existed prior to probably a month before my starting my own channel.
Oh.
Like many people, I was, the last year has been very difficult, and I was searching for something to keep my mind occupied. And I had begun crocheting, and I was getting bored with it because of the repetitive. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, I'm gonna pick up cross stitching again. I haven't cross stitched in 20 years. Well, not that long. I had started some little pieces here and there, but I had picked them up, done half of them, and never saw them again. And then I started doing my Snoopy piece, and I was thinking about other things. I was like, this is cool. I'm enjoying this. So I started going, I'm like, there are a lot of people on YouTube now doing crafting. I'll go see if anybody is doing cross stitching on YouTube. Expecting to find, 3 people. And, Pandora's box was opened. And it coincided with a period of my life a few months ago when I was going through a lot of stress, and I make no bones about the fact that I suffer from depression and anxiety, and I was cross stitching to alleviate that, to stop my mind from spinning. And also, I was dealing with the loss of a creative outlet, being a performer. So I thought, I could do this. Maybe I can do it. And truthfully, on my darkest day, I had the house to myself, and I was in my little stitching room, and I looked horrible. I combed my hair, and I said, I'm just going to do a video and see what happens. And that's what happened.
And then your channel was born.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's the lotus out of the mud.
Yeah.
And that's truly how I look at this experience. It was the lotus out of the mud.
That's amazing. That's a amazing way to look at it. In our community, I think you probably discovered this now, is absolutely amazing. They're so supportive, they're so loving. And yeah, that's part of the reason why I had started a channel. I was in a dark place when I started mine almost 2 years ago. And it's such an amazing outlet to just put yourself out there and then have just so much support and so much love. So I'm glad that you did that. And your videos are amazing. And I think you, like I said, you bring so much positivity and happiness to people. So
when I say that it has become the joy of my life, that is not an exaggeration, because I think, and truly, and I don't know that I've ever said this in one of my videos, but truly, I think that this is probably one of the most I'm going to try to not get emotional. This is because I do.
I do too. We're the same.
I think this is probably one of the most rewarding things that I have ever done with regard to being in front of people and entertaining them. Because when people leave a theater, you get people saying thank you on their way out because they have to. You're standing in the doorway. You're blocking their exit. But seriously, the kind of interaction that I have with people, hearing from my viewers that I sparked a memory of theirs from their childhood, or or they were having a bad day and they got home and they watched and it was better, or they started their day and it on a positive note, or that, I have viewers sometimes who have illnesses or impairments or infirmities, and they write me and they tell me that it helped them through a moment. I've never had that. And I can't tell you how that makes me feel. Just to feel like I'm finally at 50 years old, I'm really doing something good in the world. It's amazing. Aww. It's amazing.
Well, you're amazing. So I'm speechless because you're so real and so true and so honest in your videos. And I feel that I try to be that way too. I get emotional in my videos, showing stitchy kindness or talking about something. And I get that. I love to see other people being real and true to themselves and just embracing who you are. And that's what you do. And I think that's why so many are drawn to you and your channel. So,
well, we live in an age of reality TV that is not real.
Yeah, that is
reality true. TV is not real. Yeah. This is reality TV. Flosstube is reality TV because it's people in their homes sharing something that they love with other people who love the same thing. It's not about how many, commercials trying to sell you things. It's not about some star trying to advance their brand. It's about connection.
Yep.
And that is what we need now in a time in our lives that we have never lived through before.
Yep.
For a variety of reasons, not, pandemic to politics to just everything bombarding us and trying to keep us apart. We need everything we can to bring us together.
Yep, 100%. Thank goodness for technology. Zoom, like we're talking, Flosstube or YouTube for videos. Thank goodness for technology. I'll tell you that.
True. It's true.
Yep, 100%. Love that. So the next question is a subscriber question, and they were just wondering if you had a blog of any sort.
I don't. And I don't see myself doing one. Simply because I do try genuinely to respond to people on the channel. I do try to respond to people on Instagram. It's about how many balls you can, and then I want to stitch. So yep. I don't know. I mean, maybe down the road. We never say never, but I don't have any plans to do that right now.
That's understandable. I'm getting to the point too with comments where I'm just like, I read them all, but sometimes I can't respond to them all because it gets to be a lot, and it's heartbreaking because up to this point I was responding to all the comments. Yes. So you may get to that point too. It's a lot. It's a lot.
And I don't place any, there's no kind of judgment or disparagement there at all, because I think it's all about a relationship to the bandwidth that you have in your life. I can do it now. I'm grateful to have the capacity to do it. And as that ratchets back, I'll let my viewers know. I had just in my last video, I'm like, it's not going to be as long because I'm a Southerner. I like to talk, whether it's with my fingers or my mouth.
Yep.
So, so it's all about what you can handle.
Yep. 100%. Yep. That's a good way to look at it, actually. Because I was feeling guilty a little bit because up until, the last video, I was, up at 11 o'clock responding to comments and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, wow, it's amazing that we get so many comments and that we get all that support. But yeah, But I that's a good way to look at it. So thank you for putting it in perspective. I feel a
Yeah.
little bit better.
Oh no, absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, I think that, people, they're expressing to you their appreciation for it. And I think even if you just click the heart, or and I eventually, or even if you don't write back or even click, as long as you tell them, as
Mhm.
long as you tell them in your next video, I see you, I hear you, and you are appreciated.
Yeah.
That's, we need it.
Yep. I
So
love it. I try to do that. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
definitely. Um, so how did you learn to stitch and how long have you been stitching?
Well, I tell this story. I really started in 1981.
Okay.
And the women in my life were always doing something in that regard. My mother crocheted. I had women in my family who tatted. I don't know
Oh,
if you know what tatting is.
I
That,
actually
that
got a gift of a tat. Yep.
Oh my gosh, and that's some wizardry right there. Let me tell you, that little device that they use in their
Yeah.
fingers, I just, it was, and I was never allowed to touch that thing. you know, um, but to be honest, the person that really got me cross stitching was my youth director at my church, um, who later actually became my legal guardian. And that's a story for a different floss tube down
Oh
the
wow,
road.
you need to tell that story.
I know, it's a good one. And is the person that I now regard as my mom. She was cross stitching, and she 11 years older than me. And her name was Marilyn, and she was cross stitching, and she was a buddy. She was my friend, obviously. And she's the one who actually taught me specifically how to cross stitch,
Oh, wow.
which boys didn't do
Oh,
at all,
really?
at all. Well, not in my small town in Alabama in 1981. They sure did it.
Okay.
Let me tell you. But that's okay. I had long gotten used to the fact that I did a lot of things that little boys didn't do in my town, and it didn't. I was well used to that by that point. So, but she's who got me started.
Well, that's amazing. That's
Yeah,
amazing. And that made you who you are,
sure,
doing stuff that little boys didn't do back then.
sure.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. You would never have gotten all this had it not been for those, playground getting knocked off the monkey bars.
Oh, geez. Kids can be pretty brutal. They still are.
Listen, I laugh about it now like it's a big old joke. So clearly I've done some psychological processing.
That is
Yeah.
good. That's great. Um, so do you have a favorite project that you've stitched?
Yes, my Wizard of Oz piece. I think that was it's. And then I think back and I think of Snoopy. Again, I've only finished really about 4 things since my re-entry into the craft.
Okay.
And I have to say the Wizard of Oz piece, because it was the largest, it was the most difficult. I had to learn a few new skills to do it. I had never really done a French knot before, so I had to kind of master that. So the Satsuma Street Wizard of Oz piece, which everybody's familiar with, that I'm going to be sending out to framing. But I will say that, what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to stitch a lot of different things. I'm trying to stitch a lot of different themed things to see what really appeals to me. I've recently begun a modern folk embroidery piece, and I am just loving stitching it. And I never thought that I would be a primitive reproduction sampler stitcher. But
Mhm.
that's exactly what it is. Yeah, I think it speaks to Jacob's talent
Oh, yeah.
that, that there's just something about the energy that he puts into his work that transmutes through the paper or the screen, through the thread and the needle. It's just amazing. And I'm really enjoying doing it. And it's making me want to stitch more things like it. So I think that I'm still feeling my way through the world of stitching charts.
That makes sense. And our tastes evolve. Like I said, I would never be a sampler stitcher. Look what I'm stitching now, samplers. I actually just bought my first modern folk embroidery pattern. Showed it in my video that I just recorded. So that's kind of funny that you just started one too, because they're amazing.
They are. That Fruits of Plenty. Oh my God.
I know. I see everybody stitching it and it's so beautiful. Maybe I'll start that at some point, but I don't know.
I think there's another Flosstuber, Kathy at To Die House. I think she and I are going to start it next year and use a hashtag like "We know we're a year behind" or something like that.
Hey, I might join you then.
Okay, come on.
I might do that.
We'll be ready. We'll be ready for you.
Yeah,
because it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, it is in so many different colorways, and so I'll definitely join if you end up doing that. I think so.
Yeah.
So I know we kind of talked about this a little bit, but what do you enjoy most about stitching?
It's creative, the creativity of it, and I don't feel well, and the place that it takes you meditatively. I think it's an active meditation, cross stitching. I think many needle crafts are that. And, it just slows you down. It makes you focus. It goes back to what we were saying earlier. We're bombarded. We are literally bombarded. And what it forces you to do is it forces you to stop and focus and breathe. And not only that, you're focusing on something that you enjoy or hopefully brings you joy. And if it does not bring you joy, put it down.
100%. 100%.
Put it down. Go to something else. There's too many things to stitch. Mm-hmm. Find something that you love doing, that you want to put the next stitch in.
I love that. Yep. Yeah. I think I like that too. It calms your mind. You're focused, you're relaxed. Unless you find a mistake and then you have to frog, and then you're not relaxed.
Well,
but at that point.
And that's when you put it down and you forget about it for a few days. I always say when I have to find a frog situation, I have to put it aside and forget the pain of childbirth. I have to just let it go and then come back when I'm fresh. And it's always easier.
Yeah, I just had to do that, and now I have to frog. So it's nice to put it away, kind of reset and find your love for it again, for sure.
Yes.
So we're gonna get out of stitching a little bit, kind of learn a little bit more about you. This is, what's your favorite genre of book or movie? And if you want to throw in music, you can.
I love fantasy. Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit was formative for me. I love movies about that as well. Also mysteries, and more of the classic mysteries like Agatha Christie.
Oh, okay.
And ironically, the movies made from her books are some of my favorite too, like Evil Under the Sun and Death on the Nile. But fantasy would have to be. Science fiction would be a close second because, I was a Star Wars generation child. But, fantasy for me is because of the forests and the adventure and all that kind of stuff. And they're also usually hero's journey. And I'm very, raised on classics and mythology and what have you. So it dovetails nicely into that for me.
And those are nice escapes too, those type of books. Yeah.
You'll never find me reading true crime.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? You'll never find me reading, current event books.
Yeah.
And that's not to say there's not a place or they're not valid or needed. They are needed, but I prefer fantasy. And the box, I'm reminded, like the Boxcar Children and Little House on the Prairie and Little House in the Big Woods. And I read all the Nancy Drew books. I read all the Hardy Boys novels. I read all the Boxcar Children books. So
nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Do you watch movies at all, or do you kind of just stick to the reading? Or
I do, But I'm bad because among my group of friends, I'm always the last person to see anything.
Yeah, that's me too.
And it takes me a lot to focus on something for 2.5 hours that I'm not aware, that I'm not familiar with. That's why the Golden Girls is always on in the background. And I read an interesting thing. We tend to, during periods of great stress, which we've been living through for the past couple of years, what we tend to do is we go back to the things that we know. So we'll rewatch movies that we've seen, or we'll rewatch sitcoms that we have seen because we know how it's going to end. There's no subliminal anxiety attached to an outcome that we're not aware of. So we go back to those things which we know how they're going to end. And that's why the Golden Girls is on 24/7.
I love that. But that's interesting. Oh, wow.
Isn't that interesting?
I really thought about that.
Isn't that interesting?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's so cool. All right. Well, I love that because now thinking about it, I can see that because I've gone back and like watched Gilmore Girls and
Sure.
stuff like that I've already watched instead of new shows. And wow,
isn't that interesting?
Mind blown, right?
I know. It's just my mind was blown too. I'm like, well, of course that makes perfect sense. This was written by a psychologist, obviously, and it was very interesting.
Very cool. Well, this might be a good question for you then. What fictional place would you most like to go to?
This was on Common Threaded Stitcher the other day, and I didn't do it because I could not find a definitive answer. a lot of them that I would like to go back to were very dangerous,
Okay.
Fictional place that I would like to go back. Well, it's not really. Yeah.
You could be any place, I guess. It doesn't necessarily have to
I would love to walk through Hogwarts. I would love to walk through Victorian New York of the Alienist. Now, that was not fictional, but that's another of my favorite books, Caleb Carr's The Alienist. That is a murder, but it's fiction. It's a thriller set in Victorian New York, and it's wonderful. Rivendell would be great to visit.
Rivendell and Hogwarts have been pretty popular answers. I think we have a lot more in common in the stitching community than just stitching. I think
it's true.
I've noticed that doing these interviews.
Yeah.
So if you could choose to do anything for a day, what would it be?
Again, I wonder, what I'd really love to just for one day, if I could one day be like Prince Charles or Prince William, just to see what life was like on the inside of that royal family.
Yes.
What does their bathroom look like? Like not the one that's in the palace that everyone sees, but like what's their person? What does the queen have on her counter? I want to know.
That's stuff you don't get to see because
you don't get to see it.
Yeah.
Does she have a little thing next to her chair where she watches TV that she throws her candy wrappers like I do? I mean, that's what I want to know. That's what I'd like to, that's what I'd like to do. I can't think of something like if I could choose a career. Well, if for one day, if I could go into a classroom and teach, that would be great. If I could if for one day I could blink into an English literature professor's class on Romeo and Juliet, I'd be happy,
Oh, that's cool too. Yeah.
Because that's what I wanted to do before I wanted to be a performer, was to be an English teacher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. Just shape the minds of the, coming generations. That's pretty cool.
Although now I would probably be thrown in jail because I'd probably knock cell phones out of children's hands.
Yeah. That has become a problem in the classroom.
Well,
They used to slap hands with rulers. So, I mean, slapping cell phones out of hands, you're not physically touching the kids.
I think they actually, don't they like take them from the kids and put them in little boxes now or something?
Some do. Some put them like, or in their, desk drawers or something like that. Yeah, I can see that. They are a distraction. But no, I love that. Those are very neat answers.
Yeah.
Great. So do you have any other hobbies besides cross stitch?
Well, I crochet when I get the chance to. Cross stitching has pretty much taken up a lot of my bandwidth. Of course, I read, but I don't, reading is, I guess reading is a hobby. I think, it's it should be baseline for everybody. But reading and crocheting, I think, would be my alternate too. But cross stitching is my focus. It just is now, and I love it. So
yeah, stitching does take a lot of time. I've recently discovered other hobbies that I like, and it's very hard to find balance. I'm struggling with balance, so I get that, because stitching is the focus.
Well, and there's more to it than just the actual stitching. There's the planning of it and the ordering of it, and make it, just getting your setup can take 15 minutes to put a new project on a frame and what have you. And, that doesn't seem like a lot, but the older you get, the faster time seems to pass, Yeah. And it's just not, it does take up a lot of time. It's a robust hobby, cross stitching, because of all the things that are associated with it now.
Yep.
So it's not just like, oh, I'm just going to pick this up and do a few X's in the fabric. It's a commitment.
And I love how stitching has come back with like a vengeance. That's amazing too. Because, years and years ago, there used to be tons of stitching shops and all that. And then it kind of like died down. And then over the past couple of years, it's been like absolutely amazing how the stitching community has grown.
I agree.
And become so popular.
Yeah.
With all sorts of generations too, which is neat. So I love it. I hope it never goes away, and I hope it just keeps bringing people happiness, and we just keep passing it down. Like my oldest daughter stitches, and hopefully if she has kids, her kids will stitch, and just love it.
Yeah. And you said a key thing, it's passing it down. And that's one reason I tell stories on my channel, is that we are storytellers. Humans are storytellers. They need to be storytellers. Before there was written history, we all told it this way. And I think, and it was something that I was brought up growing up in the South. You tell the stories you tell your story. You sing the song of your people,
Yep.
And it's important, and it's a skill, and it's needed.
Yep. Love it. I love it. So this is one of my favorite questions. I'm really curious on how you're going to answer this one. It's, how would your friends describe you?
That's wild. I think they would say that I was funny. I think that they would say that I was a good friend. I would hope that they would say I was a good friend. And, I think talent would come into it pretty quickly. I get squidgy about that question because it's almost, there's almost no way that you can say. I would hope that they would say, first and foremost, that I was a loving person. I think that's what I would hope that they would say. Now, whether or not they would say that, I don't know, but I would hope that they would say that. But people, I'm just a character. That's what they would say. They would say he's a character, which has all kinds of connotations if you're from the South and you say.
Well, I think all of that actually comes through in your videos. You're entertaining. You're genuine. That comes through in the videos. I think all those are good traits. And like I said, it completely comes through. And this is the first time we've ever talked, and I get all those vibes just from your video. So
Well, thank you. That
pretty
that
sure that
really,
you say that.
I appreciate that. I really,
Yeah.
really do. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. So we're gonna get back into stitchy talk a little bit.
Okay.
And this is how do you prefer to stitch? Do you use a hoop, Q-snap, a frame, that kind of stuff?
I have a Lowry frame that I love, and I stitch on Easy Stitch frames, which is a company here in the States. It's not an incredibly expensive system to use. It's also not the most inexpensive system to use. They
Okay.
have a variety of different lengths basically it's a system with knobs, rods, and holders. And you can adjust the sizes of all of those. There are multiple ways that you can use them, just like a Q-snap. You can have different sizes and put them together. I do use Q-snaps though. I do use Q-snaps because Q-snaps will fit in my Lowry frame. But my preferred method is to use those Easy Stitch scrolls.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
Do you have like a preferred fabric that you lean towards at all, or are you kind of all over the place?
Well, this is like part of the undercurrent of my channel is everybody watching me learn how to stitch on linen. I'll stitch on anything now. I love this 36 count Edinburgh linen that I'm working on for the Modern Folk embroidery piece.
Oh, yep.
I thought I loved the Jobelin that I'm doing for my Sleepy Hollow piece, and it is beautiful and it feels lovely, and it's hard. It's tricky to stitch on because I have to be very careful about my tension because it wants to.
Yeah, if you pull tight or whatever.
You pull too tight.
Mm-hmm.
So what I thought, I'm like, oh, this is so much. The reason I thought it was so much better than the other linen is because I was working on a really loose piece of old Weeks Dye Works linen that was very like loosey goosey.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do people love this? This is horrible. But then I got the new linen and I'm like, oh, this is amazing because it's more structured.
Yep.
And of course, I love Ada. I have no qualms with Ada. I am planning to stitch Halloween at Hawkrun Hollow on a big piece of Ada. I'm going to start that as my Halloween stitch. That's a little bit of a spoiler alert, but I'll stitch on anything.
Nice. I'm a basically an Ada stitcher. I like my 18 count. But
I love 18 count Ada. Love it.
I've kind of gotten into even weave a little bit. I have a 32 count that I'm stitching on. I don't think I won't make the jump to linen, but even weave's not so bad.
No. It's great. Yeah. It's great.
So do you have a favorite place that you've traveled, and did you bring stitching or any sort of craft along when you went?
No, I haven't traveled since I've been back into cross stitching. For obvious reasons.
Yeah, I was like, that makes sense.
And it's so hard for me I am very grateful and fortunate to have traveled many places in my career and in my life. I've traveled all over the country. I've been to Australia. I've been to the islands. I've been to Europe. Wow. Paris is unbelievable. It's an amazing city. But then as soon as that comes out of my mouth, I also remember Copenhagen and Amsterdam, and I fell in love with those places. So, the world is just an amazing place. It really is. So I can't. And then I'm a huge fan of the UK. I love the UK because all of my ancestry is from Scotland and Ireland. So. In England. So I love that place too. I like a lot of stuff.
I like to travel, just can't travel right now. Yeah. England is on my bucket list. My grandma came from England, so I've not really ever traveled. So I like to ask this question because I'll live vicariously through all of the people that I interview. But yeah.
You must go. You must go to the UK. It's beautiful.
Someday I hope to. Yeah, just to kind of see where my families from,
Of
basically.
course. Sure.
Yeah. So what can you not do without for your stitching? Like your favorite go-to must have, besides the basics, you know, the linen, the thread, and the floss. Basics.
My readers. I can't stitch without my glasses anymore.
Yeah, that's me
And
too. Bifocals.
yeah. I have progressives on their own, and I don't stitch with them.
Okay.
I have to use my magnifiers, and I use a 2. I use it 2 times,
Okay.
and I can see anything with that.
That's awesome.
I can see the highest I've ever stitched on so far is a 36 count
Okay.
linen. But it's very easy to see even with my 2s. I don't know if I'll ever do 40 count, just because why? I mean, no aspersions to anybody
Right.
doing 40 count. Disclaimer, sorry. Stephanie just keeps stitching is going, I only stitch on 40 count. What do you mean, Chris? But I can see everything with those readers.
Yeah.
So I have to have those.
Yeah, I could see that. I'm the same way. I think I need my bifocals. Otherwise, I don't even think, because I stitch 18 count. I need those 18 count. And I'm like, oh. So, yeah. So how do you decide on what you're going to work on next for your projects?
Do you mean next as in among my whips, or like the next thing that I want to do?
Either, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, probably more so whip wise, but
with my whips, because I don't have many, I'll be honest, I'm motivated by what I think I want to show people, because I don't want them to ever feel as if the stitching component of my Flosstube videos are stagnating, right? So, for example, I had my viewers choose a piece for me. I had the Sleepy Hollow, and I let it languish for a few weeks because I hadn't gotten into the groove of it. And then I saw a lot of other people start it, or pick it back up, or start working on it. Start working on it again because they were watching my videos, right? And I felt so bad. I'm like, here I am launching these people into this project, which is a big project.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of, twiddling my thumbs over here. So like this past week, that's all I've stitched on. So I feel like my Flosstube is a neighborhood, and that we create it together because people inspire me to bring things to the fore. They tell me stories, they give me ideas, and I incorporate them. So I feel like I should return the favor and keep it entertaining and engaged. So that's one way I choose my whips. For new projects, I just see what I like out there and I go for it.
Yeah.
I want to start a Mirabilia.
I'm stitching a Mira. They're beautiful, beautiful patterns.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I haven't found the one yet. If you're going to do something like that, you have to find the one.
Right. Yeah. If you like, Halloween type pieces, there's some beautiful ones out there for that.
Yeah.
I can't remember the names of them, but yeah, I'm sure you'll find one.
There's that whole series of pretty witches. It's not Mirabilia. Is it Mirabilia? Or is
I think it is. They're the little pixies or something like that. Nora Corbett or Mira.
Yeah, it's Nora Corbett. And boy, her thing's gorgeous.
Yeah. Definitely. You should just whatever calls to you. I like how you look at your whips and your channel, because I kind of do something similar, because I don't want to feel like I don't have, something to show or enough to show or
Sure.
something like that. So yeah, I get the same thought process, which is, it's nice to meet somebody else that has a similar thought process.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah.
You have to enjoy all your whips so that anything you work on will be enjoyable to you. But I do want it to be enjoyable for the people who are watching. So that is really the primary decider for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. 100%. I love that. We're down to the last question.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I can talk forever. It, you know.
Well, it feels like it flew by, like we were just chit-chatting. And then
I know.
oh, wait, we're on the last question now. This is one of my most favorites, and it's kind of evolved a little bit over the, I think, year and a half that I've been doing these interviews. But it's, what's the best thing that has happened to you within the past couple of years?
Flosstube.
I thought that was going to be your answer because we've talked about it. Yeah.
Flosstube, without question.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah. The community.
You know, first of all, there hasn't been a lot of top contenders over the past 2 years for you, but again, circling back to the very beginning, at the lotus out of the mud, it's the greatest thing ever. And I'm cognizant of the fact that you know, my journey has not been normal. You know, I've had a big moment, you know, with like in this community.
Mm-hmm.
But I cannot take all the credit for it, because I am nothing more than a channel. I'm a conduit for and that's why I call it a neighborhood, because I do think that it is a collective community of kindness. I think it's a reciprocating thing. My viewers bring out the best in me. That's what I am able to show them. I'm not always kind, and I'm not always happy. And I have a temper that you would never imagine. And there are days when I am not my best self. But what sitting in front of this computer for half an hour every week does is it makes me be my best self. It makes me engage a section of my brain with kindness and positivity, happiness, and love. And if I have had any kind of big moment, it's only because I'm mirroring back what I'm receiving for it. So, I truly believe that. I truly, truly, truly believe that. So yeah, without question, that's the greatest thing.
I'm speechless. I love asking this question because, yeah, the last couple of years has been rough for everybody. So I want people to look at the positivity that has happened out of that. It was like the past year when I was doing it, you know, during the whole 2020 fun year. And you are so honest, and how you answered this was just amazing. I have no words. Usually I'm very, very good at, you know, continuing that on, but it was very well said. And I think you and I come from, I guess, similar backgrounds with the dark place, and using this as our kind of our almost escape or our outlet type of thing. And so what you said really resonates with me as well. And hopefully it reaches other people as well, or it inspires other people who are in dark places to start a channel, because this community has helped you and I out so much that it can help out anybody who, you know, feels like they need some sort of outlet.
Right.
Very well said. Very well said.
You know, it's hard to have. I think one of the graces about this for me is I didn't really have expectation. And I think that's where we get tripped up a lot in our lives, is we put so much weight on the expectation that when it doesn't manifest the way we wanted it to, we're hurt by it. So, you know, If you do something out of joy, you tend to not put as much expectation into what you receive from it because the very act of doing it is joyful.
Yeah.
So that's the way I have to approach this. And that's the way I never approached anything before. Because when you're a performer, you're always, you go to the audition with the expectation that you will get the role. And then you have to quickly shift to the expectation that you won't, so that when you do, you're happy and you don't, live in a deep, dark place for many years, like I did in New York City. But so, yeah, it's a big about face for me, ideologically, and the reward has been very great.
Well, I'm glad that the community could help you out as much as you're helping out the community. Yeah. So, yeah, that's an amazing way to end the interview. Actually, I think it's very well said. But thank you so much for taking time out of your day and for being so real and so honest and just putting yourself out there in this interview, and your channel. I appreciate it. The community appreciates it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm still a little bit, flabbergasted that we're here and with all this is happening. But thank you for giving so many. Thank you for the platform that you give to other Flosstubers to not expose us. That sounds like, expose, click, click, click. But but to show a side of us that other people wouldn't normally see. I think you are doing a great thing with what you do, in that you're putting a completely different spin on the Flosstube experience. And I really appreciate that.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad that it's so well received and that everybody is so open to doing it and to putting themselves out there, so that we could learn a little bit more about the person behind, the stitching, basically, is what we see in the costume video. So thank you for saying that.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, come on, you deserve a tremendous amount of credit for having this idea and doing it, and I think it's wonderful.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really do. So we'll say bye to everybody on Flosstube. Hope you all have a nice couple of weeks.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Bye.